timely, insightful, discussion and analysis of economic trends and markets. From Southern California to Sacramento, featuring business and political leaders, unique field reports. From Orange County and the campus of Chapman University, this is the Chapman Business Report.
Hello and welcome back to the Chapman Business Reports, our weekly look at business, financial markets, and a special focus on the regional economies of Southern California, but we take a look at the big picture as well. I'm Pete Weitzner. I head up the broadcast journalism program over at the Dodge College of Film and Media Arts, a couple of blocks west of us. And just behind us in the building that's Beckman Hall houses Dr. Essie Adibi, the economist. He and Jim Doty getting ready for their 34th annual economic forecast to be put out in December. Boss, thank you very much for coming back.
My pleasure.
We'll hit the latest numbers on the economy. It's not all bad news. In fact, on this day as we record this at the outset of October, auto sales came in rather strong. We'll also duck in at the end our great student feature stories, whether the famous carousel in the Balboa Fun Zone. An Orange County icon is going away, but maybe to be saved. And also we'll put a wrap, Trent and Shalom will, on the Angels. Disappointing, a successful season. They played well, they won more games than they lost, but they didn't make the playoffs. Trent will have that look. But let's start with matters of the economy, boss. And before we get, I mentioned strong auto sales, but that wasn't the focus of the Fed boss's comments.
Yes.
And I thought it unusual that he would be so pointed, basically toward Congress and the White House, saying the nation's, this is Ben Bernanke, nation's weak labor market is in a national crisis that required attention from the White House and Congress. 45% of the unemployed or so for 6 months or more, unheard of. We need policies to retrain workers. We need housing policies to help the market recover. Again, you're a Fed watcher. That's unusual.
Yeah, it is unusual. Remember, our Federal Reserve, our central bank, everywhere else we call it central bank, has 3 mandates, which is a little bit different from other central banks. Central Bank of Europe, Central Bank of Tokyo, Central Bank of Australia, Canada. They have only 1 mandate, and that's price stability. Watch for inflation. In our case, since their establishment, 1913, we gave them 3 mandates. We told them, hey, we don't want inflation. We want growth, high employment, right, and reduce unemployment rate. So balancing their act has been always a challenge. During recession, they wanted to stimulate the economy, generate growth and employment, lowering unemployment rate. And during, hot run on the economy, overheating phase, they want to do it. You want to do it. So what they did this time, Bernanke and his board, they have done almost everything that they could have done.
And they were criticized, in fact.
Oh, sure, more than
maybe
traditional.
in response to this, Republicans just recently shot back and said, cool it with the quantitative easing.
It's more than traditional. Traditionally, what they do is they lower interest rate, get the prime rate, federal funds rate. They even, buy some bonds, to help that process. They lower discount rates. They change the reserve requirement. These are traditional tools. This time around, not only they've done all those, as you mentioned, they did 2 rounds of quantitative easing, which basically means they printed money and bought debt instruments, whether government or commercial. And recently, actually, they decided to do what they call twist operation, which basically selling short-term instruments and buying long-term instruments, helping to bring the long-term rates down, helping the housing market. And they know.
Didn't Bob Citron do that? Borrow short and buy long?
But this is different. Bob Citrons, had to show the result. In their case, they don't have to show how much return they're going to get.
Flattens, we're in trouble.
Yeah, but sure, it's going to hurt some of the banks. But the main purpose for doing that was even bringing mortgage rate lower than historical level that they are, helping the housing market. So now they look, and similar to private economists, similar to us, we're all saying, well, economy is lingering through, growth is there, very anemic, but job market is not moving. And again, that goes against one of the mandates. So he basically is telling the Congress that we're almost done. We don't have very many things in our arsenal, and you guys have to do something.
What do you think he means when he says we need housing policies to help the market recover?
That, I'm not sure. There are lots of debates going on. Part of it is that we know some people that are underwater, and they're making the payments on their mortgages, and they could obviously do refinance and improve their balance sheet, but they can because the loan value is more. And there are some discussion, maybe Fannie and Freddie should really go out and approach these people and do the refinance, bring their monthly payment down so they have more disposable income.
Right.
So it's going to help the economy. The problem becomes again that this becomes again taxpayers' losses, because if the earning is not there for Fannie and Freddie holding
Right.
these loans, they're going to have less earning and they're going to have more problem. And secondly, is not all the loans are held by Fannie and Freddie. So how about private portfolio banks that they give mortgages?
You
and
remain
keep it?
opposed, really, to other than those credits, which you weren't even a fan of that. You said that just borrowed sales from.
Yeah, I think we should have stopped. I mean, I can see what Bernanke is saying. Maybe another stimulus, hopefully, if we do anything, would be infrastructure rather than transfer payments. But doing much, housing is almost, we have to wait. This is not going to turn around fast.
Right. Case Shiller prediction for housing price appreciation is 1% for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. Again, we discussed this over and over in this show that housing, similar to what happened to 90s, it require lots and lots of times. In 90s, it took almost 9 years for the correction to settle. And this time around, the problem is much bigger. We have a huge number of unsold, housing units out there. And for those to disappear and we go back to a normal market, we need lots of job creation, and we know that's not there. So housing is going to require lots of time, and anything we do again is just putting a Band-Aid on a serious wound, and more or less is not going to do much. That's why I'm not into it.
And his comments, when the Fed speaks with open market committee, beige book, whatever, and markets reacted. It was the last week of September, and it was a very bad Friday when he gave this assessment. Having said that, the consumer is doing okay. September auto sales at a rate of 13 million. I think when the economy's rip-roaring, we're about 16 million.
Over 16 million.
13 million isn't bad.
Yeah, we're coming off of 11 million. Remember, in 2008, 2009, it went down to 11 million cars on an annual basis.
Right.
And now we're about over 13.
And
Part
U.S.
of it is,
Motors or GM up 27%.
Local Chrysler report was astonishing.
19%.
Astonishing. So what's going on is basically two elements. One is obviously consumers who have jobs, they have to replace some of those cars, and there's a pent-up demand there.
Average,
and cars are aging.
10 years, I think.
Over 10,
right?
almost 11. 11
Wow.
years average. Of course, quality got a little bit better, so
Sure.
you can drive them a little longer. But nonetheless, they're mechanical units.
And
they're
here's
going to fade.
some good news for drivers. Oil prices and hence gasoline prices. As we record this, we're recording early October. This runs mid to late October, but now oil prices dropping below 80 bucks a barrel wasn't too long ago. A few months ago, they were at 110.
That is very important. Out of all the turmoil that is coming from Europe, and the main problem for our audience, what's happening to stock market is coming from Europe now, and pretty soon it's going to change to what's going to happen in Washington, dealing with the debt and deficit. But that's what's really shaking up the market, the confidence in the stock market going through correction, and partly because of a slower economic growth. But the good news out of that is the oil prices.
Sure.
And obviously we have to be careful.
Even China's slowing down. I mean,
China
they're big.
is
Obviously,
slowing
their
down. Big
demand.
consumer, big consumer of oil, and Europe is, even Germany is weakening. Now we have to be careful when we tie it to gasoline prices, because the Brent, which is a different type of crude, that price is more tied to gas prices. But even there, the Brent was close to $120 a barrel, and now it's close to 100. The West Texas, that's the one that you just quoted, is about 80. And gas prices went down by almost 30, 40 cents, I believe, from the peak. And that's a good news.
Well, as you said, every 50 cents is more than 50 billion into the economy.
Exactly.
That's a lot.
Of course. Remember, this year we got a break from paying Social Security taxes by 2 percentage points. All the workers paid we're supposed to pay 6.2.
Down to 4.2. And if in the Obama plan,
if it's
is
adopted,
another 2%.
Yeah, they're going to cut it actually to half.
You think that will happen?
I think what Bernanke was saying, yes, we have to do something, and I think the Congress probably has to do something.
The employers get a break, and if they hire somebody new,
$4,000 credit.
Exactly.
Yeah. The whole package, by the way, if you want to address that, is about $447 billion that Obama is proposing, combination of reducing taxes, helping the state and local governments, and also some infrastructure spending. I doubt that if the whole package is going to pass.
Right.
The chance is low.
Something
but
like
something
that
is going to come out. But when you go back to the oil prices, we got 2 percentage point reduction in our Social Security, which basically we collectively paid $110 billion less taxes That stayed in our pocket. But unfortunately, when gas prices went up,
Right.
I mean, it went up by $1.
It did.
Practically took
Over last
everything
year.
away. Now it's going down by about 50 cents, so that's a good news. That puts some money in our pocket for Christmas holidays.
Real quick, it was a bad quarter for the markets,
Yes.
commodities, equities.
Yes.
Well, commodities really. I mean, I know you can say it was excesses, right?
Yeah.
Gold hit
Oh,
almost 2,000.
I think so too, yeah.
Is
No.
profit taking then?
Yeah, see what happened, the market was anticipating
Covering stock losses?
part of it, and at the same time, if you remember, when the Fed announced Operation Twist, which was, you know, selling short-term instruments, buying long-term, some market participants were expecting they're going to do another quantitative easing. So they did $1.2 trillion of easing, printing money. That was about 2 years ago. 600 billion middle of last year. They were hoping they're going to announce something similar. And anytime you print money, what happens? Your currency goes down, gold prices go higher. So the market realized, oh, they're not going to print money. They're
Went
just
the
going
opposite way. Our currency appreciated against the
appreciate
euro, and
exactly, and the gold prices have started making correction. Now the question is, of course, is this going to stay that trend, or it was a bubble or not? We have to see the development that is going to come through. But there's no question that the slowdown in world economy is putting pressure, not necessarily on gold prices, on commodities. We're talking about silver, which has an industrial use. We're talking about agriculture products. And those actually, generally speaking, are good news because it puts less pressure on prices. It's good news for us.
we're not so much of a stock picking show, but we do,
Yeah.
of course, talk about the financial markets, especially in the last 15, 20 years when a greater portion of Americans not only own stock, but that's their nest egg,
Yes,
maybe
yes.
versus their home. And third quarter was lousy.
Very bad.
One of the worst, well, certainly worst in 3 years, 12% on the Dow, 14+% on the S&P. Any explanation when corporate earnings are pretty good?
Corporate earnings are good. Actually, some estimate when the reports come in through October, they're going to be all up between
For
5
third
to
quarter.
10%. You know, the problem was, as we kind of alluded to it, we started the year with a whole bunch of problems. You know, we started
Right.
with problem in Europe, problem with our deficit and debt, problem at the state level, then Japanese problem, then Libyan's unrest. And unfortunately, we're still dealing with some of these problems. Japanese situation has been resolved.
But
Actually,
Europe-
that's helping us a little bit in terms of manufacturing. You know, we're in catch-up mode. The Libyan situation is almost resolved. They're producing oil, by the way. French Total already is in there pumping up 50,000
As you
barrels.
said, they may just be the 12th biggest exporter, but it's a very important type of oil.
type of oil. But the problem is the European. You know, when we had banking problem in 2008, we adopted TARP program. Lots of people criticized it, but overall, we took a decisive action and moved on it, so the market can anticipate the outcome. Europeans,
Their banks are hanging in the
unfortunately,
wind. These two or three French banks.
French, German banks, and then some, you know, surrounding countries, their banks, and indirectly our banks. The problem is they know the problem. They probably know how to solve it, but there's no political will
They
here.
talk about these bonds they might issue.
They have to, actually they did. There is a European, you know, financial security facility that they increased that from $250 billion, 250 billion euro, which is almost $400 billion. They kind of doubled that fund to help. But again, they need to take more decisive, more strong action to announce a uniform, you know, plan. And they're not doing it, they're dragging it, and every day bad news comes from Europe, that's it. Our stock
Surprising.
market
There's
goes
strong
down.
leaders there. Merkel, Sarkozy, these are strong people.
Yeah, but the problem is it's becoming political. Merkel is running for re-election. Sarkozy is running for re-election. There are lots and lots of election that is going to happen next year.
Cameron's
And people, especially German people, are pretty.
Right.
There was a survey. 80% of them say we should have stopped helping Greece and let them
it
go
float
out.
away.
Exactly. But they don't realize the
garage
benefit
is
that
on
they
fire.
got. Exactly. See what the problem was. There are 17 countries there, and unified currency helped Germans to sell lots of goods to these guys. If you kick those out, their currency is going to be so weak, they won't be able to buy those Mercedes and BMW. But again, it's becoming a political issue, negatively impacting our
Speaking
market.
of politics, you want to give me your take on these, again, we're beginning of October, these protests going on, Occupy Wall Street, came to Los Angeles.
Yeah, unfortunately, anytime people are frustrated. You know, there's no question. People are frustrated that job creation is weak, unemployment is high, cost of goods are going up, and somehow they have to express themselves. I am surprised that they don't go and protest in front of Congress, because that's where I see the problem, more than financial institutions or Wall Street. In fact, financial institutions are being really punished. Practically every
worst
year.
Worst sector in the third quarter with the financial stocks.
And we know, we did some Dodd-Frank,
right.
And there was an amendment there. We can talk about that.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because you saw this coming.
Oh, I saw it.
The merchants, retailers were complaining that every swipe, every transaction was 44 cents if you used your debit card. Added up to a lot of money off their bottom line. So as part of the Dodd-Frank Durbin bill, they said they limited it at 21 cents, a big haircut for banks.
Actually, no, worse than that. Durbin Amendment left it to the Federal Reserve to decide what the fee should be. And the initial
was 12 cents.
Yeah, almost 12, 14, something like that. Which clearly, people forget the cost of processing these debit transactions and the fact that some of these money are not going to be collected. There's some fraud in there. And so when you look at the banks, financial institutions, they were getting 44 cents. They were making some money with 44 cents. Now they put it at 12 or 14 cents. Now they pushed it back to, what is it,
21 cents.
Still, I bet you most banks, their processing cost and cost of fraud prevention or paying for the charge-off, write-off is more than 21 cents. So what do?
Well, as you said, they're going to charge the consumer. The consumer is going to lose.
Yes.
And the latest is, and not all banks are doing this, but Bank of America is, starting next month, $5 a month, anytime.
Next year, I think.
Next year, okay. Anytime, even one time you use your debit card to pay for something.
It's a flat. It's a flat fee of $5.
Yeah, your checking account fee, your ATM fee. You're talking hundreds of dollars every time, every year, to use your money.
Yeah, see, it's unintended.
I'm not borrowing any money.
It's unintended consequences of actions that are being adopted in Congress. The merchants really won in this battle. Bankers lost. The merchant says 44 cents is too much, so, give us the break. We pass it on to the consumers. Are we seeing it? I doubt it. So banks are losing the money. They, again, go back. So consumers are the losers, again, bottom line. And that's what I'm saying. Some of these regulations, with very good intention, has a side effect that people don't realize. And now they're pointing at the fingers to the banks. Oh, you're making that lots of money. But they're not. As you know, even the big banks now, whether even brokerage houses.
You think this $5 B of A fee goes through?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
What they're probably going to do is attach some minimum requirement on your checking account, or you have to have multiple banking relationship. If you have your mortgage with us, if you have credit card with us, we waive it out. So that would come up.
Could be the return of cash or the return of credit cards.
Yeah, but the basic idea here is that they have to recoup some of that lost revenue.
Well, Bank of America does, because one of their duties is to shareholders, and their stock is down 80% from 3 years ago. Whereas some of the others, JP Morgan.
And they're struggling even with their capital, you know, because of all the bad loans that they have from Countrywide. They still have to, cover those losses.
Warren Buffett says he's undertaxed. All millionaires are.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I would say, yeah, he uses himself as example, and he's getting lots of heat for it. But he has won. The premise here is correct. Not everybody is paying their fair share. And the reason we're not paying our fair share, and maybe you are one of them, I don't know, is, don't worry, we're not going to reveal it.
I'd still add an honest return.
What it is people are using what? Loopholes. And illegal, I mean, these are not illegal activity, but you can find so many ways as an individual, especially if you're on high income earner,
But he's saying raise the rates on the top earners.
That's what he's saying, but I would rather to get rid of some of the loopholes, make the tax system more efficient and fair, and this way, all of us, we know what we're paying, probably even, I would argue maybe a flat tax, maybe 2-3 rates with no deductions.
999, Herman Cain. Yeah, you like that?
But it's okay, I could live with that, but nobody's going to go for that, you know that. So that would be much more efficient and much fairer than what's going on right now.
A couple of quickies.
Yes.
Buffett also is bullish on America. His company said his company's invested $7 billion, 90% of it was on U.S. firms. He says American business is ready to do well.
I have never seen him not to be bullish. Have you?
True. Well, and everything he has is in the stock market,
exactly.
So he better be bullish.
Sure, but we have to be really mindful of what's happening to the country. You know, we're losing our competitive advantage in number of industries, and part of it again is government regulations and the rules.
You said you thought third quarter earnings would be pretty strong.
Decent, yeah.
We come off really weak job growth, which is all about jobs, you know, in July, August. Any reason to believe, starting with the September jobs report, which will be out a few days after we record this, we're going to get a lift?
Yeah, see, previous month was flat, zero, no job creation. We think like the number that is going to come up for September is going to show about 50 to 70,000 job creation plus number. And seasonally, we're entering good season. You know, this is where, you know, retailers are going to start hiring. Of course, most of it temporary, but I believe, barring any unexpected event, and I'm worried about what, Europe again, if something really drastic happens, which really dent employers' confidence, we should get about 200,000 jobs, you know, between the next 3 months on average. When you divide it by 3, it could be 60 to 70,000 jobs.
Hope you undershot it.
I hope so too, yeah.
You ever ride the carousel in the Ever go to the Balboa Fun Zone? You've been here in Orange County a long time.
I've never been there. You should take me.
I've been like twice. But it's an Orange County icon. There's a dispute going on over there. We'll have a report on that and a wrap up on the Angel season with our great student feature stories. Stay with us on the Chapman Business Report. Time for our great student feature stories here on the Chapman Business Report. We begin with a dispute in the iconic Balboa Fun Zone. Here's Zoe Loza and Matt Rogers.
Hi, I'm Zoe Loza, and I'm at the Balboa Fun Zone in Newport Beach. Behind me is the iconic Balboa Carousel. Let's take a ride. This weekend marks the 75th anniversary of the waterfront park. In celebration, the businesses on the pier discounted their prices. Things like 50-cent bags of cotton candy, 25-cent cruises, and 10-cent Ferris wheel rides. But the main attraction wasn't the lower prices. It was the opportunity to ride the carousel for the last time. For one family, it had been a big part of their lives.
We have 4 generations that have ridden, and these people, starting when they were babies, even this one, and me, since I was about probably 9 or 10, come down here messing around, and of course I was very old when I rode it.
Tomorrow, the carousel will stop spinning in the Balboa Fun Zone, and people are reacting in various ways.
We don't think it's fair, we don't think it's right, because this has been history for so many of us, and we live here. This is part of our history.
I don't really care.
But how did this all begin? Matt Rogers has more.
The story really isn't about the fact that the carousel is leaving. It's more about who's responsible for it. A Facebook group was created in an effort to save the Balboa Carousel. Many members blamed the Newport Harbor Nautical Museum for making it move, saying things like, "They are ripping out history," and "Thanks for ruining my childhood memories." But Rita Stenland, the museum's president, says that's not the case.
But when we moved here, the tenants always knew that there was a temporary short-term lease situation.
In fact, Stenland said she hoped the carousel would relocate somewhere close by. But instead, Patrick Moore decided to sell it on eBay for $149,000.
And the location is undisclosed as to where it will be moved to, but I did hear it would be moved relatively close. I'm not sure if it's in Newport Beach, though.
Ultimately, the museum is using the vacated space to create a new educational program called Explore Ocean. It will have an underwater observatory and a 4D theater that will tell the story of early marine explorers, among many other features.
Even though the carousel won't be spinning at the Balboa Fun Zone anymore, visitors can still play games at the arcade, browse street booths, and even ride the famous Ferris wheel, which still has 25 years on its lease. For Zoe Loza, I'm Matt Rogers, Chapman News.
And at last check, it looked like the carousel might have a new home somewhere in North Orange County. We finish up with a premature finish, many folks think, to the Angels' 2011 baseball season. What might have been? Here's Trenton Shalom.
Hope, surprises, and disappointment. The 2011 Angels baseball season has been all of that and some. It represented the 50th season in franchise history and ultimately resulted, like many of the previous, with an empty home in October. It wasn't until Monday night where the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim were mathematically eliminated, but hope remained for a majority of the year despite a Texas-sized cloud hovering over the Big A. The Rangers dominated from start to finish, but it isn't like the Angels didn't have opportunities. Halo youngsters were the sword the Angels lived and died by. On September 11th, Peter Borges dropped a fly ball, which cost them a chance to sweep the Yankees. And just this past Sunday, Jordan Walden essentially ended the season with his error in the ninth. And the big free agent Vernon Wells was paid $16 million to hit .218.
You got to turn the page on this season. I think once we're eliminated, you really start to think about the next step, and it'll be here before we know it.
But it isn't all bad in Anaheim. The future is bright. Mark Trumbo has emerged as a premier player in baseball, and contributions from Hank Conger and Mike Trout are what kept the Angels in it as long as they were. And the starting pitching isn't going anywhere, with ace Jared Weaver signing a 5-year extension last month. All in all, it's been a year of growth with the pains associated. And on the night where the Angels appreciate their fans, the folks in OC, yeah, they deserve it. Reporting in Anaheim, I'm Trenton Schlom, Chapman News.
And no sooner did the season end, and so did the four-year tenure of General Manager Tony Regan. So it goes in sports. Our thanks to, as always, the boss, Dr. S.E. Deeby, the terrific economist, for his insights on the regional and national economy. Look, of course, for his 34th annual economic forecast in December. He and Dr. Jim Doty. To Jeff Cole Productions, class of 2001, his crew do the entire Chapman Report. Kiko Sura, Dan Duran, Haley Quattaroni, and our special guest on camera, Ryan Westrar. Thanks to them for doing a great job on putting the show on. Thank you very much for watching. Back again next week with another look at business, the financial markets, and a special focus on the regional economy of Southern California. I'm Pete Weitzner.
Funding for this program was provided by Chapman University.